Hi everyone! You have to say hi first.
You don't have to say hi. You don't have to start a video any particular way. But yeah, so we're doing this video. We kind of started recording. We were talking earlier about, we're going to do a video on, I guess, weird stereotypes between different countries, like how Americans view Brazilians and how Brazilians view Americans and what weird stereotypes they might have.
Right.
And as we started talking, just like throwing out ideas, I was kind of saying that I don't really know of anything that I would consider weird about Brazilians. Like when I think about different cultures or ethnicities, it's not so much that I think of what they do as weird. To me, it's just different. Like everyone has their own values and their own differences, which I appreciate. I wouldn't call it weird for the most part. Maybe there's some cultures or people who are weird, but I feel like as a whole, I wouldn't call it weird. So we were kind of just going back and forth and talking about different stereotypes, where they come from, why they might exist, different values, and then we were like, oh, let's just start recording and make that the video instead of the other video. So yeah, here we are. But yeah, so I forgot where we left off. I think we were talking about like America. Sometimes people think Americans aren't very social compared to other countries.
Yeah.
Which could be true, I guess, in some situations, but I do think that sometimes I feel like sometimes Americans aren't social, not because we don't want to be social, but because like the work culture doesn't let us be social. So like if you're in a country where rest or relaxation is prioritized, it's easier to be social because no one's working. But at the cost of that, the economy might not be great because no one's working as much, so you're not really producing that much. But in like America, it's like you might want to be social, but everything's so expensive, the cost of living is really high, you kind of need to work 2 jobs just to have the ability to be social. And then if you even have the money to be social, you don't feel like, at that point you don't feel like being social, because now your energy's all drained from working 2 jobs or 3 jobs or 1 really demanding job. Not saying that's true with every American. Obviously there's plenty of Americans that don't want to be social, but
yeah, I feel like part of it is the workload. I feel like here we do work a lot, like 13-14 hours a day is an extent amount of hours to work, and so it's true that in the end of the day you're mostly drained with, especially like if you have a side business or if you have your sender job and then do something else on the side, you're probably on your lane because your time is so overbooked with the other things that you do that you're kind of not prioritizing that social aspect. I feel like, well, I'm from Brazil, and I feel like we hear a lot of people say like, oh, Brazilian, we're just generally more warm and happier, and I feel like just as a cultural aspect of it, I feel like we are louder, we smile more, just because we're outside more, and it sometimes doesn't mean that our lives are exponentially better, right? Like, because every country has its downside, right? It's not, everything's not great, not here and not there, and so I'm not saying that Brazilians don't work or don't like to work. We also have extent amount of hours back home, and in a lot of cases we do work a lot and we're just not returned enough. Here, like, you work a lot but you actually see what you're making in the end of the week or in the end of the month. There, one of the things is like you usually work the whole month and then you get paid sometimes twice, sometimes it's the 20th and the 5th of each month. That's how you get paid, or sometimes you get only paid once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah. Sometimes
you guys don't do bi-weekly?
No, sometimes it depends company to company, but it's pretty common you get paid once a month, or you get like something that's called a vale on the 20th, which is like a portion of your salary, and then another portion of your salary on the 5th. And so it's pretty common, and some other companies you just get paid once, and then so you have to really budget
the whole year.
The whole year, yeah.
What?
So like you just get not get paid once a year, but like once a month, and so you got
that's still
still budget. We don't spend on a week by week basis. I feel like I come from a lower income background, and so we had to like real budget the whole month and like paying expenses, and so we would spend what is left out in the month to spend, and like it's pretty common, people there like work and study. Sometimes they study, they work all day and then they go to school at night. Usually in Brazil you study at night if you're in high school, or if you go to college. Usually it's something more is similar to community college, where you have to commute, and so that's pretty common. And I would say that we do have very extended working hours as well, but we are very social in that aspect. I feel like the music and just like a lot of the social values, I guess, make us be a little bit more louder, and like, I don't know, maybe that's a cultural thing. I do think there is a little bit of a cultural difference there. I do think both countries has its downside, and here we're usually focused on doing more with our money, just because it's a country more led to capitalism, and so because of open market, and like everybody's incentivized to like create their own business and like create their own sort of different income, and we're more driven that way, versus there is a little bit more common. We prioritize the 9-5 job, or working for other people and improving our skills to do better at other companies, and we're not as focused on creating our own side business. I think that's one too, so maybe we're not as stressed from that. But on the other side, we might be a little bit more stressed, because then we don't have as much money at the end of the day, and so I think like our sense of humor is like make fun of our situation, and I feel like it kind of helps Brazilian cope with certain things. And so like, oh, we're already like in this situation, so like what, it's gonna make me worse if I keep thinking about that, so let me make a joke about it and everybody's gonna be happier. I feel like there's a lot to do with our culture. Yeah.
I was thinking about this too. I feel like if enough people are in a certain situation, that influences how like the culture perceives something. So I'm thinking about like money.
Right.
I heard this might not be true, so if you're watching this and you're from like Thailand, let me know. Or like Italy, I've heard this kind of similar with Italy. But I've heard like in Thailand, the culture is not really like a work-oriented culture. So a lot of people don't really try their best to work and to make. And I've seen videos where people are like, if you offer, say like a Thai guy, the opportunity to make like a lot of money helping you with like a business or something, he's probably gonna turn it down, because he's not incentivized to want money. He's more incentivized to just enjoy his life and just relax on the beach, which is fine. There's no right and wrong way to live life. He might have a shortcut to happiness, because I feel like a lot of people chase happiness. And if he's happy just chilling on the beach and not making money, he's probably better off than someone in America who's trying to be happy, but they're trying to earn tons of money, probably never get happy, just to chill on the beach with the extra money that they'll never have. I don't know. But I think a part of it, I'm kind of listening to what you were saying, and I feel like if the culture in Thailand is not really to work, it's kind of good in a sense, because everyone around you is not really like forcing you to behave a certain way. Where I feel like in America, the culture is really just like to chase the American dream, which I feel like a big part of chasing that American dream is just work as much as possible, because I think like it's embedded in our culture that work equals equals success. Like, I don't think this is true, but I think a lot of people think the harder I work, the more I'll earn in the grand scheme of life. And I think that's why you see a lot of Americans. I get that obviously the economy plays a role and stuff's expensive. You gotta eat in certain places, but I do think that like the culture is just like, oh, if I work super hard, if I work like 14 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 2 jobs, I'll have more money, which will eventually make me happier because I get to buy a house, which is part of what the American dream is. Like, have a house, have a car, have like a certain type of lifestyle, which I don't think is true. I think you can be happy and not have that much money and not have the house, the car, all that stuff. But that might be a whole different video.
Right.
But I do think, like, in America, everyone's trying to do that same thing. So even if you individually might not care, you're almost seen as like a weird person for not caring, which makes you start to care, if that makes sense. It's like, well, I don't really care, but everyone around me says I should care, so I guess I'll care. Because if I don't care, I feel isolated and I feel like a weirdo, and I don't feel like a weirdo. So let me get with the program. Thailand, it's like, no one cares, and I don't care. So it's all cool. None of us care.
Yeah.
Or I imagine Brazil, like, if you're around a bunch of people and the income's not like super high, it's like, well, we don't have money, but we got each other.
Yeah.
So we don't really care about having money because it's not really our,
we're happy
each other.
anyway. Right.
So I don't know. That's just the way I kind of, as you're saying it, I'm like, that's just, I don't know. That's
It's kind of like a cultural there is a cultural fun on it. Like, I didn't mean fun, I mean like funnel. Like, but I don't know, I feel like there is a little bit of a stereotype too in a lot of those things. The same as somebody says like, oh, you're from Brazil, and then they show me like this soccer game and they're like, oh, what's the name of this guy? Or like, oh, did you hear that song?
Neymar,
and then, yeah, right. And so like Neymar, a lot of, you know, like the majority of people know Neymar around the world. But like, if it's somebody that is not as famous, and like if you're not into soccer as much, you're not gonna know. Or like a song, like a band or a particular singer that you're not listening or like as often, or like you haven't heard before, and you're like, oh, this song, do you know this song? But you're Brazilian, right? How you don't know this song? And I feel like a lot of people like have this conception with what it is to be a Brazilian, and so like we have a lot of different backgrounds from it, depending where we are located in Brazil. I feel like a lot of us has like, some people like folk, some people like rock, some people, and if you pull actually the background of rock and like folk music, and you can see that it's a little bit more like of an American popular thing. And so like, and prior to coming here, I was already listening to rock and trying to understand the lyrics, and you know, like, so I was so in that I was not spending as much time listening to particular artists from the popular Brazilian music as much, because that was not my goal at the time. My goal was to practice and improve my English. And so like, now that I'm here, I actually started listening to music from back home that I was like, oh wow, I lived there my whole life and I've never heard this, and now I actually like it.
You're not a real Brazilian.
No, and that's what I hear sometimes. But actually, I feel like when you leave your home country, you become a little bit more patriotic, because you're like, oh, actually this is pretty cool. Or like, you start missing things that for you just had there for you available, like nice coconut water and like sugar cane juice and like corn on the beach and big avocados, and you're like, wow, I had this all and I took it for granted, and now like I'm so far away, and still like, you know, now I miss it, and so you start defending like, okay, well, if you're not Brazilian, you're not allowed to speak bad about Brazil. And we do have a friend in common that he also jokes a lot about, oh wait, are you from the favelas, or like, are you close from the favelas? And I'm like, well, not really, but you know, like Brazilian is really big, like real big. And so actually I'm from downtown, and so
not quite the favela.
So it's just interesting to hear other people's perspective, and it's the same with the American culture, because we always hear that people from here are not as warm, and I'm married to an American guy, and I feel like he's so warm and so sociable. At times, a lot more sociable than I am.
Cold right now
Like he
'cause
will.
it's freezing outside.
I know, and like I feel like people are just different on their own way, and that's okay. You don't, are part of this stereotype or like that. That doesn't mean that you're less of who you are because you don't follow the masses.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You were saying when we were first trying to like brainstorm this video, you like the idea was to talk about weird things that Americans do or Brazilians do or like stereotypes. What are some weird things that you think Americans do?
I felt like first when I got here, one of the things that I was not used at all was check the time, check the weather all the time on their phone. Like if you that was a big one because I feel like in Brazil it's not like we don't get cold. No guys, we do. Like sometimes it's cold in Brazil too, and it's very cold sometimes, and it's kind of like our fall here. Like and for us there that has never experienced snow and like really like negative temperatures, is very cool for us, right? Because that's our max. And so but we're not like, on Saturdays actually it's going to rain, or I don't know, like unless you are planning a trip to the beach or something and you want to see if there is a preview of rain, you're not constantly checking your phone to see how is the weather and what's the temperature is like. And I felt like when I got here, I was like, oh wow, everybody's always checking like what's the weather is like. And I would just go outside. I was like, okay, wait, I'm cold. Let me go inside and get a jacket. Or like, oh, I am hot. So let me take down a layer. And so, yeah, that was number one. Number two is scheduling a time to speak with people that you care about. Like in Brazil, I feel like it's a lot common. We just like, hey Fulan, let's go, let's talk about this, and so long I haven't seen you, you actually go to the person's house and you clap or you call their names, and you don't need to schedule a time to be like, and which I kind of like that concept of like, well, I'm busy, you are, prioritizing and like you are respecting my time about scheduling and seeing when I'm free to check in. So I feel like this part I haven't experienced. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm saying that I haven't experienced in my 20 years living in Brazil. Like the two biggest. I also like, because we're at pretty hot, and tropical weather, we do shower a lot, guys. Like, so like we wake up, we take a shower. If you want to go to the grocery store, first you take a shower and then you go to the grocery store. And sometimes if you go out, when you come back, you shower and then you go to bed. So like you kind of are going on that pattern. Oh, I have to do this, but first I need to shower. And I feel like here is just like there's not this priority of like, oh, I have to shower so that I can do this. It's just like, oh, I already showered today, like in the morning, I don't need to shower again. Or it's like a big difference,
Yeah, I think some of that stuff is funny because like a lot of that stuff I wouldn't say is like American. I think it's based a lot on where you are in America. But then like I think sometimes like, I think we were talking about this the other day. There's a video I saw where someone took like they made a map of like the world, and they did it based on actual sizes. Because like if you see a globe, I don't know how true this is, but if you see a globe, apparently it doesn't show the actual size of each country. It's just it's like a relative size to it. It's hard to describe. They just take like a general size and they just put it on a sphere, but it's not the actual size of each country. And so what the guy did is he's like, if you take certain countries and put them over America, you can see how big America is compared to like other countries. And he was like, you can fit a lot of like Europe, for example. Like you can fit Germany, Italy, Portugal, Spain, etc. in America, and still have lots of America left over. And he was saying how like people don't realize if you're from like a certain place in the world, you might experience like one climate or two climates in very specific times of the year. Where in America, you can live in like Virginia and experience 4 different seasons in like 1 month. Or you can live in like Miami or like Florida and really just get rain and heat. Or you can live in like Seattle and just get rain. Or like Arizona and you just have like a desert and it's just dry and hot. So you can go from like different states and experience extremely different climates, which affects how people in that area adapt, I guess. Because you were talking about like the showering thing and the checking the weather. I was like, I imagine if you live in like Virginia, you gotta check the weather all the time.
To see if it's not snowing outside, it's not dangerous, you could die. Yeah.
Literally in Virginia, like in the course of a day, it can be like hot from like 8 a.m. to like 10 a.m. Raining from like 11 to 1. It might snow from 1 to 3. And then from like 4 to like 7, it's like hot again. Or like chilly, but not like freezing. So you have to like be like, okay, what am I gonna wear today?
Yes.
I don't have time to keep going back home to change every 10 minutes because I commute to work. I'm not home. It's just a hassle.
Yeah.
So you got to like plan ahead a little bit because the climate doesn't really allow you otherwise unless you're going to be uncomfortable all day. I imagine the showering thing too is like, I think that's person to person because like my dad showers a lot. He showers like 4 times a day. But I also imagine too, like if you live in Brazil, if it's hot.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Japan's like really humid, so you get really sweaty. And you just end up showering a lot because you just don't want to feel sticky like all day. It's just gross. You just feel gross. You smell bad. But in America, it's like if it's cold, you don't feel sweaty because you're cold. And if you work far, you don't really have time to like go back home, shower, do some other things. Come back home, shower. I don't know. I just feel like it depends on like where you live, what your schedule is.
Yeah, you see, this is the part though because in Brazil, let's say like when we're in our winter, that's like basically your fall weather. Like when it could get pretty cold depending where you are in Brazil too. And I still think like the shower thing is like a big, like when you wake up and when you go to bed, you know, at least. Another thing too is like I know a lot of doctors here, they recommend like in babies not to shower, not to give a bath in babies every day because make their skin dry. And it's just like, yeah, that's not, we wouldn't follow that advice.
Dry skin might be good in Brazil though. I don't know. Like I heard Africa, some place in Africa, like dry skin's preferable.
So I don't know, it's just, you know, it's just a different that I felt here that it was a big difference for me. Now I'm kind of like, okay, now I understand how it works. I'm here almost 7 years, but you know, first when I got here, those was like the biggest differences that I felt, like the scheduling thing, the checking up on the weather all the time, even though now I understand why, and yeah, the shower thing, you know, especially like with kids, I don't know, it's not like sometimes the kids will play outside the whole day and be sweaty and go to a playground and come back and the parents will be like, oh no, they're fine, you know.
They just don't be bothered.
Yeah,
I don't feel
you
like
know, like it's
today.
just like, yeah, that would be like turn a couple, you know, faces back home. But I again, it's just a cultural thing, and we have to respect. You know, we have to respect. But yeah, and I don't know. I feel like those are the biggest thing. Oh, as we go on, zero meals. Like you have,
that's
you
America
eat a
has weird
sandwich
meals,
and you call it a lunch, or I don't know, guys. I need to have my meals. Like I need to have breakfast. I need to have breakfast. It's a need. For me, particularly, the week can go until 2 p.m. without eating anything, and
yeah, that's
no,
a me thing.
That's
not an
yeah,
American thing.
yeah. That's a no for me though. I need my breakfast.
I haven't had breakfast yet, and it's like
I don't know,
2 or 3 p.m. So
I couldn't do that. But I also have pretty bad migraine headaches, and so like I need to feed myself. But other than that, like a dinner, like what it would be considered a dinner for Americans would be considered like a meal for us. You know, like when you have protein and carbs and like vegetables and like a plate, very colorful plate, and that's actually a meal. And you have a meal 3 times a day. Now, I'm curious to know, what are some of the things that you think it's weird or different that I do that you are not used to?
See, like, I don't know about weird. I don't think I couldn't think of much that like Brazilians do that, even like you or Brazilians I've heard of, do that's weird. Yeah, like nothing comes to mind. I'm trying to think of like what maybe Americans might find weird that Brazilians do.
Yeah.
I think, you know what I think? I think one thing about America that's kind of interesting is I think we have so many people, like different types of people. If you're exposed to like just different types of people in general, and I maybe I'm speaking for too many Americans here, I don't know. This is, I imagine this is probably other people's experience. Stuff stops being like weird or strange, and I think you just accept it for what it is. Like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like, alright, I'll say one thing that I think I've heard Americans say is weird, and I don't find it weird, but I'll kind of share the story. When I was in college, I had a professor I had a public speaking class. He was a bad professor apparently because I can't speak, but he was Swedish, and he said that Americans found him weird because he would leave his kid outside in the cold. In America, it's like, whoa, you're leaving your baby unattended and you're leaving your baby in the cold? That's strange. Like, why would you do that? And he was saying like in Sweden, it's actually normal. I think he was Swedish. He was saying like in Sweden it's normal because it's cold. And their belief is that when you're a baby, you want to build your immune system up. So you leave the baby in the cold. And you can leave your baby unattended because it's relatively safe. No one's going to mess with your baby. And that's it. And then when you get older, your immune system's built up so you don't get sick as much. And he was saying like Swedish people don't really get sick. He found it weird that Americans don't leave their babies in the cold, and that people will like over bundle their kids up and try to like overprotect them from like the weather, because he had the belief that if you put them in the cold they would not get sick, and obviously if you're not getting sick as a baby you don't get as sick as an adult. But I think that's weird because a lot of people just don't know Swedish people. I imagine, like, I don't know that many Swedish people. I rarely come in contact with Swedish people who are like from Sweden, I guess I'll put it that way. I think in my entire life I've met 4 people that are from Sweden. Yeah, I think I've met literally 4 people from Sweden, which says a lot. But I've met plenty of Germans, Italians, Asians, like Chinese, Korean, Japanese people. And not as many Japanese people, oddly enough. But so I feel like when you get exposed to certain groups of people enough, what they do might not be weird. It's almost like, and this is no offense to someone who might be in this, like, this is more like a religious thing, but like if you meet someone who's Muslim, at a certain time of day they might stop what they're doing and I think face Mecca and pray. I've met enough Muslims that it's not weird. I'm like, oh, okay, I know exactly what you're doing, why you stop what you're doing, because you're praying. But if you've never met a Muslim, you're probably like, what are they doing? Like if you're Christian or like Jewish, you're like, that's weird. He or she just stopped what they're doing to just face a direction. He pulled out a compass and he's praying. It's a little strange. I don't know. That's just the way So I don't know. I think there's nothing really like I've seen with like Brazilians that's so outlandish that I would consider weird. That could just be me not knowing much about Brazilians too. But I don't know. I can't think of anything that's weird with Brazilians or.
Wow, guys.
Yeah.
We've been living together for almost a year.
More than a year. Way more than a year.
Well, like living together. And
it's not over a year.
Well, no, we're together for a couple years, but living since we're married, it's not really that long.
Yeah, that's true. I guess like not consistently, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is too, though? America has a lot of different people, also. So I feel like it's kind of weird if you're. I don't know. I just feel like it's something to be like weird if you're from like a different country and you go to like I find it weird, say like in Alabama, that they have like trailer houses in some areas, or it's just like dirt everywhere. Like some of the things they might do is just like, why do you guys do this? Or like some people might find it weird how like you go to New York and everyone's just so like fast paced, like the traffic. We went to New York, and I've been to New York plenty of times. We went to New York not that long ago for in October, I think, for my birthday. And I still find it weird just like how people drive in traffic. I'm like, this traffic is insane. I can't imagine people living here. But I've been to New York, but it's such a big transition to go from like Virginia traffic, where it's like boring and it's just there's a lot of traffic but it's not like hectic. It's just it just doesn't move. To New York, where the roads are just confusing, but there's also just people merging, people who don't signal. Like it's just a big difference because the way the city's laid out is just really different. I don't know. So I feel like in America you can just go from like state to state or city to city, and it's so different.
Right. Well, in Brazil too. In Brazil too, like our states too looks like their own different country because we're so big, and like every they even have like their own dialects. Even like Pachi's from Santa Catarina, and I'm from São Paulo, and so she lived in São Paulo for a while, but there are words that she will say, and it's gonna be a different dialect for me. And now, if she's saying like in a whole in a whole sentence, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand what you mean. And the same thing with me. Like sometimes I'll say, sometimes even like a slang or something. Like we would reference to the same thing, but with a different word. And that's pretty. That's common too. Like. We have very like different influence in every state too. This is a similarity between Brazil and America that I see too. Like the states here are very different from each other. Brazil too. I think that was a great video.
For you guys watching, I'm curious to know, what do you find weird about Americans?
Or different. Doesn't need to be weird, right? Like. If you're accepting of other cultures, if you have traveled a lot, just let us know what is curious for you from other culture that you're not so used to.
Yeah.
We'd love to know.
Yeah, let us know. Leave us a comment below and watch our next video when it drops.
Subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe to our channel.
Dude, it came out right. Subscribe to our channel. Now it did.